Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 4th, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present. We'll now turn the time over to Vice Chair Garner for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We're fortunate to have a couple of scouts with us tonight, so we will ask Jonathan Robbins from Troop 293 to come up to the podium, and he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, would everyone please stand? Proper hand salute. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Jonathan, hang on. We're going to ask you a couple of quick questions, and we'll ask the other scout who's here with us to come up too. But Jonathan, tell us where you're from and what merit badge you're working on.
I'm from North Ogden, and I'm working. I came here for my communications merit badge, and yeah.
Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you.
I'm Austin Gold, and I'm here. I live in Ogden, and I'm here for my communications merit badge.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you. Now please join with us as we observe a moment of silence. Thank you. First on the agenda is a request to be on the agenda for the Airport Advisory Committee. Mr. Royal Eccles.
Chair Blair, council members. The city sub-advisory committees have a sunset provision which terminate their existence on a certain date. The Airport Advisory Committee sunset on June 30th, 2011. The purpose of the Airport Advisory Committee has been to advise the mayor and the council and to assist with goals, objectives, and strategies for the operation of the airport, assist with the airport master plan as part of the city master plan, assist in the development of rules and regulations for safe and effective operation of the airport, review proposed changes in rates and charges, and assist in capital improvement plan for the airport, and review complaints and suggestions from airport users, assist in economic development and marketing strategies for the airport, and annually submit in writing to the council and the mayor its activities. Council staff has asked me to report the highlights and activities and to outline the vision for the next 10 years. What do I click on? Just anything?
I can't see it, can you?
So the Ogden Airport, what we'd like to highlight right now are the items that have been of the most economic impact importance for the city in both revenue and potential economic development areas. The number one was the attraction of an airline and to fulfill the vision of the city to be a commercial destination. Allegiant Airlines brought many opportunities for us and many options for continued funding for the airport. Service started in September 20th, 2012 to Mesa, Arizona. In that first quarter and the 10 days of that September that it made up, the numbers were 93% capacity inbound and 94% outbound. In the first quarter of 2013, it was 95 and 96. I want to make note that that is a period of time that is generally the slowest for aviation. In the second quarter of 2013, it's been 95 and 94. As of Monday, there were 7,554 passengers this year alone since January 1 that have been emplaned. The magic number of 10,000 that means so much to the city is going to be attainable by the end of July or the 1st of August. That 10,000 employments makes us a primary airport, which gives us grants for primary entitlements of $1 million a year to help maintain the pavements and snow and snow removal equipment. After we received the letter of intent from Allegiant Airlines, we had quite a bit to do, and we started the construction of the secure passenger area terminal that we needed to have completed for them. We started construction in July. Here you see a picture of it, July 17th, and our first flight to start 2 months later. We built that secure passenger area. It has the capacity to handle a Boeing 757 up to 225 people. We also built it in a way that it was eligible for FAA reimbursement if we decide not to use that building anymore for a terminal, which we'll talk about in our future plans. This building will become the maintenance facility for the airport for our trucks and such, which the FAA will reimburse us. The attraction of the airline also gave us the ability to receive other grants. Our current, at that time, our firefighting vehicle, which is called ARF, Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting, they just call it ARF all the time, was a 1979 Spartan, and it only had 300 gallons available on it. What we have now with this aircraft, we received a grant for $700,000, and that's a $550,000 vehicle you're looking at, 1,500 gallons of water, 300 gallons of foam and dry chemical. It's an amazing piece of equipment. Just the equipment that's attached to it is $170,000 that we would not have been able to get without the airline. We also received a grant for the ADA ramp. This enables us to load passengers, whether they're ambulatory or have ADA, in all aircraft up to a 757. It's movable. It can change to whatever aircraft in just a few seconds. We also received from TSA the demand that we have certain types of security on the airport. We have 800 badges of people on the airport right now. Each person has to have an STA background check before they're available to be able to come onto the airport. We also received the money to do the security enhancements from the FAA. We also received a Department of Utah Transportation aeronautical grant for security improvements around the perimeter of the airport, fencing and signage, and a chemical sterilization of a 4-foot clear zone. There can't be anything within 4 feet of the fence on the outside or the inside all around the airport. We have 7 miles of fencing, a 4-foot clear zone. That's 14 miles of sterilized ground is what we're doing. This also brings great economic ability to the airport. We've put out a new RFP for the rental car. Budget answered that, and we've increased the revenues. We now participate in their rentals at budget. We also have a parking lot that we'll begin charging for when we increase the number of our flights. As the airlines increase, we have landing fees. You can also charge for the ARF, which is the fire and rescue personnel that man that vehicle. Also for fuel flowage fees, for the fuel that flows into the aircraft. Also, the terminal has now become an area where more people flow into, and so it is more attractive for places to come and to pay money for. What we've developed here is a new economic engine for the city. Also done was a runway reconstruction on runway 1634. That's the one that's straight up and down. It's the one that's heads basically north and south. It was a $4.32 million grant to redo that. What was happening with that runway, it was delaminating. It was not ever engineered for frost. It's a beautiful runway now. It's grooved, it's crowned, it has drainage full length both sides. That was a neat project to complete. We started it in 2011, completed in 2012. While we were doing it, 2 of the runways were closed down, including it, and then runway 321, which is the great big long one, we could only use basically half of it or 2/3 of it because of the construction. So we were quite in a cumbersome spot there for a while. Also, a couple of things that you need to be aware of that we've been able to attract is Cornerstone is a flight school on the airfield. They've now signed a contract with the Chinese. They get 20 students every other month, and that student stays for 11 months. And while he's here, he flies for 250 flight hours. They're going to be bringing 15 different airplanes on the airport. This will continue it started last month, and it will continue for 11 months. So the people that there's going to be 100 students come in. So in 10 months from now will be the beginning of that last group of pilots. This has increased operations immensely. There was 800 operations alone last weekend just because of them. They're flying constantly. It's quite interesting to listen talk to on the radio too, because you get from 34 Papa Papa. You just hope there's not a Lima Lima, because then it would be a Rima Rima. Also, ATP is the nation's largest flight school. It has just started an Ogden campus. We're very excited about this. This has great opportunities. This takes a student from beginning all the way through instructor, and it already pre-qualifies that person to get into the major airlines. To give you an update on the tower, before I do that, this is the plan for, I don't have this in electronic format. I apologize. I couldn't get it small enough. This is the plan we have that has been accepted by the FAA. Here is the current tower. Right here is our terminal. The tower is right here. This is runway 321. This is 1634. This is the area where we intend to move the terminal to as our commercial operations increase. It's out to the west. That advantage will give us economic development opportunities for the west side of the airport to open that up and to bring those opportunities to pass. It will also separate the commercial from the general aviation, which will be a good deal.
Royal, is that where the other...
Okay, do you remember the mobile home park that's out there?
Okay.
Nice corner? That's indicated right here, so it would just be on that side. So here's 31 as it goes out, Hinckley Drive.
So where is camp operations then? Is that...
Say that again?
Purple buildings up in the top.
Oh, that's down here. That's the current one, the Kemp Gateway Jetway Center.
Okay.
So Royal, the main entrance for the public will be down 3100 and then turn, correct, right there?
Right, 3100 and also off of 4000.
Can I ask who decided that? I mean, where was the decision made? Who determined that was the best place, or?
That's the only place we have available to be able to do that. It's an unused area of the airport, and it gives us great opportunities to expand out there and to bring development to that part of the airport. Right now, there's nothing on it. There's
Okay.
nothing there.
You know, I'm just curious if there was a plan in place or someone.
We're limited by the amount of space we have, and that's where it works out best, and it also opens up great opportunities for us.
And that master plan's been floating out there for quite a while.
2007. Then I was asked to do a quick update on the tower in case, I'm sure that some of your constituents are always bothering you about, hey, is the tower closing? Does that mean that the runway's closing, that the airport's closing? I get a lot of that. So let me just real briefly update you on the tower. On March 5th, we received an email that said 248 of the contract towers were under the opportunity of getting closed. 184 were cited. We were given till March 13th to respond to that letter, and they gave us 4 criteria, what they were looking at to be able to keep the tower open. The number one that we were looking at was that if you're a critical reliever airport to a large hub, we are. Ogden is the critical reliever to Salt Lake Airport. Number 2 is a threat to national security. Ogden Airport, the end of the runways, is 3.58 miles from the end of the runway of Hill Air Force Base. Their approach flies right over top of Ogden, and their runway is runway 14, which means 140 degrees on a compass. Ours is 16. Once a week, the tower will stop somebody from landing at Hill thinking that they're landing at Ogden. It's very critical. 3.58 miles separation is only. Their air traffic flies over top of Ogden, separated by 500 feet from our traffic. It's very important that we maintain the tower, and the tower does a great job of doing that. So anyway, we were notified on April 5th that the tower was going to close on May 7th. I immediately contacted Hill Air Force Base, my people that I know out there, and I asked the question, I said, did you have any chance for input on this? And the response was, Royal, it's amazing that you called because I just got out of a meeting. Not the base commander, not the wing commanders, not the safety officers, nor the tower were ever made inquiry by the DOD or by the FAA about this whole closing. So we called a meeting, had it 2 days later, and during that meeting we decided that we were going to write letters and submit them to the FAA. These people that were going to write the letters were wing commanders and safety officers from Hill Air Force Base. It turned out that after a week, the letters didn't come because they were in fear for their jobs for what was coming down. I immediately notified Bishop's office, Hatch and Lee. Bishop ran with it. He intercepted communications between certain departments, And he was able to ask in committee meetings specifically questions for Ogden. We found in those questions that he was asking of Hagel, Huerta, and LaHood, we found conflicting testimony, which brought about the arrival of the Air Force Materials Command, the AFMC A3. It's the top level of the Materials Command that controls all airports, all military airports. They came out and sent 2 representatives. We had them in the tower with representatives from Bishop, Stewart, Hatch, and Lee. The mayor was there, and Mark was there. And while we were there reviewing how operations handle, it was just our luck that it was a safety day for Hill. They weren't flying, so we were able to get the 151st to come in and do approaches. And they were able to visually see the importance of the tower and how it separates aircraft. And they could also see that that Hill Air Force Base could not control anybody on the ground in Ogden because of the height difference between the two. One of the people from the Materials Command that came out and he's turned to me and says, I think your airport, it's just my gut feeling, he says, but your airport's going to be saved. I turned and asked him to quote that to the mayor and to Mark, and he said it, and after he said that, we jumped for joy. Right now, we are good. All airports are good through fiscal 13, which ends in September. 14, if sequestration comes again, I think we have positioned ourselves with the DOD and the FAA. I got the actual documents from the FAA showing how they graded us. Our whole line was blank. They didn't even have us marked off as a reliever for Salt Lake or for a large hub. So their documents were incorrect. I think we've gotten to the point now where we stand to be in good shape. We feel very confident about that, and I think our biggest plus is our relationship with Hill Air Force Base, and they're wanting to keep us, and the fact that we've got DOD communicating with the FAA now. So the Airport Advisory Committee was abolished by sunset provision on June 30th, 2011. Myself as the airport manager and the CED staff believe that it's important to reinstate the committee with new economic developments at Ogden Airport and to be able to capitalize on the airport and the city's economic development opportunities. CED staff requests the City Council consider and adopt the ordinance reinstating the Airport Advisory Committee, and the ordinance also amends the Ogden City Municipal Code 814 to reflect the following changes. Subsection C, the current requirement that at least 6 members of the committee be residents of Ogden or have a principal place of business in Ogden be removed. The new proposal will require a minimum of 3 members of the committee be residents and an additional 2 members be residents or have their principal place of business in the city. Subsection K, staffing services will be moved from the Public Services Department to the Community and Economic Development Department. Subsection M, the new sunset date will be June 30th, 2023. Are there any questions you have before I turn time over to Buck Froer, who will address the ordinance?
Could you review future plans for the airport? Is Allegiance thinking of increasing their destination opportunities from this airport?
They have plans right now to 4 different locations that they have told us about. We're trying to hurry that along its planned route. They have plans for us to go to Las Vegas, LA, San Francisco Bay Area. There's also talk of Bellingham, Washington. They are also a fast-growing airline. They're the most cash flow positive airline right now. They make $28 million every quarter, and with that money, they're expanding like crazy. They're huge on the East Coast. Their next business plan is to be able to tie the West and the East Coast together. And with the addition of the new aircraft they have, which we have got at Ogden with the Airbus A319, they now have the legs to be able to do that.
And so your committee that you're proposing would review some of those programs, is that correct?
Yeah, and their expertise would be very beneficial to attracting the businesses and to implement our economic ideas and to push it forward for the vision of the city. But
Chair Blair and members of the City Council, I've been asked to present the particulars relating to the proposed amendment and modification to the Airport Advisory Ordinance. I'd like to point out that Schedule C that Royal referred to is modified a little bit from the wording in the language on page 2 of your transmittal that is contained in your packet, because that was drafted in, and I think dated on April 25th, that preceded some subsequent discussion and language that has changed. And so what he read was that the current requirement that at least 6 members of the committee be residents of Ogden or own a business in Ogden will be amended and removed. The proposed ordinance will require at least 3 members be residents of Ogden City, and that another 2 either be residents of Ogden City or have their ongoing principal place of business in Ogden. So the proposed amendment to the ordinance number that would be accomplished by ordinance number 2013-22 would make that change, as well as the provision that the staffing services will be undertaken through the Department of Community and Economic Development instead of the Department of Public Works, and that the proposed sunset date would be June 30th of 2023. So they're essentially just those 3 changes. The major policy change would be the residency requirements being modified to liberalize this a little bit more than the current ordinance, which requires 6 members of the 9-member board to be residents of Ogden City. So the proposal would be that you adopt ordinance number 2013-22 with those modifications. I'd be happy to answer any questions if any members of the council have a question.
Before, I just have a clarification. Have you checked the packet? Is the ordinance in the packet the correct ordinance? Okay.
Can you examine or elate on the opportunities of businesses in Ogden? What does that entail? If I live outside of Ogden but I have a business in Ogden, what do I have to do in that capacity there to be on?
In order
committee?
to qualify to be a member of the advisory committee, the language would be to be an ongoing principal place of business. So an individual could be a principal associated with a business, but they'd have to have their business operation and location within the boundaries of Ogden City on an ongoing basis. I might point out that the current ordinance that is not being proposed to be changed requires that every member of the advisory committee be at least 21 years old, and that they be a resident of Weber County, and thirdly, that they be involved in some aspect of aviation in their background and experience. And those 3 requirements supplemented by the 2 requirements that I just mentioned that would be modified by this amendment. Any other questions?
I have a question. If someone in the administration or the council has an idea or a concern at the airport, would this committee go and investigate and look and make recommendations, much like the Planning Commission does for other things? Is that primarily what you would anticipate them functioning as, or is it what will they deal with?
Well, the ordinance provides that as an advisory committee, they would have no authority to make any decisions, but only to advise. That in that capacity, they could be asked to investigate, to study, to report back, to respond to concerns that are raised from any source. Any member of the committee can raise issues. The administration could raise an issue and submit it to the advisory committee for evaluation and their response, or a member of the public or a member of the council. Anyone could bring that to the advisory committee for evaluation, and then they could assess that and respond. It's provided in the ordinance that an advisory committee, this advisory committee, would meet at least quarterly, and that they would, among themselves, select their own chair and vice chair. So there would be some leadership to that, and work with the airport manager, with Royal directly, and with the administration as they may deem it necessary or desirable.
You don't have a schedule of when and where those meetings would routinely be, do you?
I don't personally, but since it's not been an operating committee officially for 2 years, I think that will be something they'll have to establish when they get this new group that's, I think, on the consent agenda before you tonight after this proposal to actually appoint the members.
Thank you.
And Mr. Frower, along with that, I'd like to suggest they come up with some pretty good bylaws of, how frequently they meet and meeting attendance so that the committee can stay functioning.
That would be very desirable, I agree. So that's on the record now. So, thank
I
you.
would think that would be their number one business of.
Sure.
Thank you.
Now we have public comment. Public comment now. We would like to allow public input on anything relating to the airport or the airport advisory committee. So if any are here for public comment, we'd welcome that now.
Give you 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Lou Wheelwright. I live at 5618 South Shadow Mountain Lane in Ward 4. And I've been involved as a property owner and as a pilot at the Ogden Airport for some 40 years. And my concern with the committee, most of the people on the committee I do know, and I don't really have a lot of issues with them, but my primary concern is how the committee was formed, which I don't know. But I had an opportunity to meet Saturday morning with some airport rats out at the airport. And these are people that, they have businesses there, they have airplanes there, they have hangars there, and they're really kind of the backbone of what, of the GA side of the airport. I have to congratulate Royal on, what has happened on the commercial side. I think that is fantastic. But I'm a proponent as this transition takes place, because we're always going to be a GA or airport. We're not going to overtake, till we get 20, 30 million people here. We don't need a lot of receiver airports, but the commercial side is absolutely essential, but the GA side is kind of the backbone of what we've had. And what I don't see is I think we need to have some input. It would be nice from my standpoint of view for the council that they would actually talk to the Ogden Regional Airport Association, which has been around since 2002, and actually get some input from them as to to get some members on there, because the meetings we've had out to the airport over the last few weeks, trying to get a little bit of kumbaya so there isn't the contention between the groups. This really didn't help that. We need to get some people cross-section, from each of the areas, I believe, onto this committee, so that we do have a committee that's going to represent the folks that are at the airport paying the leases and paying the rent, and probably the major percentage of income that's coming into the city at this point in time from the airport. And they also could be a great asset to actually be proponents of GA, to simulate the GA growth to get our ops up at the airport. That's my input. Do you have any questions for me?
So you're proposing that the general aviation perhaps is not well represented on the committee? Is that what I'm hearing, or?
I think the feeling is, I know most of the people on here, and I don't really have any major issues. Some of them I do not know, but the folks at the airport, the GA, guys that actually have airplanes at the airport, and there was about 25 at the meeting. They felt that representation, that they did not have representation, and that they weren't asked for representation. And that's a concern, because, I think for a group to go forward and, to have, some good homogeneous feelings, everybody needs to be represented.
They don't have a representative now?
They do not feel that they've been represented or asked to be involved in the process.
They have a person on the committee that's being recommended that's from this area?
I'm not here to do that because, I don't really, I'm just speaking for them. I'm sure that there's somebody that they would be more than happy to put forth if we was to ask them.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Mm-hmm.
Chair, maybe just a reminder that it's generally just for public input, not a question-answer period.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Kopecki. I live 1865 Wasatch Drive. I'm a member of the general aviation community out there, and I have the same concerns that Lou does. How was this, let's call it a steering committee, formed? I don't think there were any asks. As far as I know, nobody was solicited or asked if they'd like to be a part of that committee and so on. So I feel that a little bit of cronyism is going on here, and it's very disturbing to me because the general aviation community right now, I don't feel is being well represented. I think it's great the airlines is there, but it seems that all the efforts are geared towards them. We still have a north and south airport because of the SIDA. That hasn't been rectified. And we've heard all kinds of excuses and so on about why it can't be changed. Well, I don't believe in it. Government can't be that inflexible. The other part of this whole thing is, and I don't know how to, well, I just won't say it then. How's that? I'll just leave it at where it is, and I feel that we're, as a general aviation community, being jilted a little bit, and I think it's time that maybe you listened. I think Royal said that there were 700 and some passengers that were boarded out of Ogden this year. That's wonderful. Let's talk about the movements. Aircraft movements are what make an airport run. We have 100,000 movements normally a year at Ogden Airport. Allegiant Airline constitutes 4 of those every week. Multiply that by 52 and you'll see how many movements the airline has. What does that add? I asked at the couple meetings back, why are they being exempt from fuel tax and landing fees? I know it's so we can slow dance the airline. I understand all that. But in the GA community, I don't get that benefit, nor does any of my comrades. So I think that's a little stilted as well. So I'll leave it at that. I think maybe we need to review how we appoint people to the steering committee. And I think maybe that needs to go out again for maybe volunteers or take another look at who's been appointed to that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I wasn't going to get up and address this. I'm J.R. Lundgreen. I reside at 727 Robbins Avenue, Ogden. And I think one thing that I have a problem with is, and it's been addressed a little bit, is communication from our airport manager. There's very little communication going on with general aviation out there. I've been out there for probably 40 years, 35, 40 years. I've got airplanes out there, the hangar out there. I pay my taxes. I pay more right now than Allegiant pays. And I understand that's about to change. But I didn't see anything posted at the airport. Maybe there was something posted about the new advisory committee, the people that were selected, so that we could have some input with this to take and offer suggestions. I know that we've offered 1 or 2 to Neil, and we've talked to Royal's boss about some people from the Ogden Regional Airport Association. We represent a good share of the airport out there. We've got commercial pilots on our organization. We've got a 3-star general that sits on our organization. We've got several military active and inactive or retired that are members of our group. We're a strong group out there. We have had no input. In fact, Royal, And I saw him do it. He put his hand together like this, and he says, all of your RAA is a small group of agitators. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're done. We can just move on.
Okay, any further discussion from council members? Do we want to
Administration.
allow?
The process for putting together this committee is recommendations made from the airport itself and the director. The mayor then makes those appointments based on what he receives, and we submit for advice and consent from you. We're happy to take a look and see if there's maybe some representation that needs to be taken a look at. But these terms are not very long. In fact, I think 4 of them are 1 year, and the other 5 are 2 year. So we've heard the comments, and we'll be happy to meet with Royal and with Tom, and we'll take a look at it as time goes on.
So in the new wording for the ordinance establishing the committee, there's no maximum committee size, is there? 9. Okay. That's
9 is the maximum
9.
size.
Could you develop a subcommittee to the advisory?
We'd like to get the advisory committee going first before we go further than that.
Well, this would give an opportunity for those that feel like they're not represented to at least have a voice in what's
We heard tonight, we'll be happy to take a look at that for the future.
The other thing is those meetings will all be noticed and be public, and these people could represent their views in those advisory committee meetings.
Absolutely.
Can we take special care to see that happens? I mean, I think that's postings or something, so they would know when and where.
We will. We'll make sure that they're posted. We have to by law. Those meetings will also be recorded, and there'll be minutes taken by law. So, yes, we'll make sure that we get the notification out.
So I guess I just am curious if, we're addressing it now, if it wouldn't be reasonable to maybe have that airport association recommend someone, sort of like on the Landmarks Committee, the Heritage Foundation recommends a representative.
If we expanded it to maybe 11 members or some, and I don't, or one,
maybe it's one,
and make sure that it's somebody that comes at the recommendation of the Ogden Regional Airport Association.
I don't know that
they submit a couple names. Doesn't Landmarks commit?
Like I said, I think we'd be happy to try and address this. I don't know that it's right now, but I think we will address it and we'll figure it out.
Well, I think the problem is, I don't want to wait until the other term, another year until some of the terms are up and they're up for reappointment. And there have been concerns, with the list that we maybe didn't have adequate representation from Ogden City residents and people involved with general aviation at the airport. It just seems like since we are reinstating the committee, it would make sense to take care of it properly instead of come back next year and look at it.
Any other comment?
It would be helpful to understand, so we have this Ogden Regional Airport Association. How many groups are there at the airport that are organized like this? Do we know that?
I think just the one.
I think it's the only one.
So 9, is 9 the fixed number? Or can that be
Ordinance it
adjusted?
is.
What we're recommending.
That's what?
That's what the recommendation is.
But we could always change that number, couldn't we?
Well, if we're going to change it, we should probably do it now, since we're reinstating the committee.
Mr. Williams, can we do that?
You won't do it in this meeting. We'd have to come back again for the third time. And then we'd have to at least think about the concept of whether you can place upon the mayor the restriction that you must choose from this favored group instead of other groups. And that's something we just haven't treated yet.
I guess I'm just kind of looking at it the way the Landmarks Commission set up, and they just have criteria that certain groups are represented. And I don't know how it works right now, but the Heritage Foundation put forth names, and then
But the issue
the
is,
administration picked one out of those names.
the issue is that group does have voting power, and they actually can make or break a recommendation. This group that's coming forward is just one that's going to make recommendations, but they have no voting power as such.
Right, it's an advisory committee.
It's an advisory capacity. I think that's where the issue is going to come in.
So this group, do they have an opportunity to advise the committee once it's formed? Can they say, we suggest?
Well, I think Mr. Frower covered that. Anybody could go to the advisory committee and go to their meetings and give information. You know, any citizens or council members or...
You can address concerns there or, yeah.
I would suggest that you can still take your action tonight and take under advisement any additional future changes to the composition of this board at another time and make additional amendments at another time. Whether that's a month from now or a year from now.
Okay.
One thing that kind of comes to mind is I know a few of these people that have been recommended, but their bios indicate that they all have general aviation backgrounds, and you know they're not like all commercial air pilots or whatever, and I think that so they certainly have sympathy for the issues that the general aviation community has, and I wouldn't see that there'd be. I don't think there's a real issue that we need to address tonight, personally.
Well, and
I don't think we want to table it and bring it back.
No, we've done this twice. And also, I found it, you know, that there wasn't anybody who was against any of these members who are being advised. And I think that's important also.
I mean, I get that, but I also feel like this group feels like they need to be heard and need a voice.
And can we just make that assumption? I mean, is that a fair statement that we can make the assumption that they will be heard, or are we? To me, that's the issue. If they're not on the advisory board, will they still be heard?
Well, if they attend the meetings, they would be, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, it's...
Like here, people have an opportunity to address the council.
Well, we'll also get the minutes of those meetings, and they don't vote anyway, they just recommend. So we'll be able to get the minutes of the meetings and get the public input that way.
Can I
Never
ask
did when
Royal
they
a
had
question?
meetings.
Sorry, Mr. Eccles. One of the appointments, Mr. Young, sounds like he has been president of the Ogden
Yeah, he's past
Regional
president of the Ogden.
Airport Association. Okay.
He's also the current CAP leader on Ogdensville.
CAP.
Civil Air Patrol.
A lot of acronyms in flying.
Thank you.
So I think it would certainly be important to get this passed, but I guess it might be helpful to have a timeline for considering some kind of future.
That probably is something that we need to, at least I need to understand a little better, is at the end of a year when 4 terms expire, how will they be recommended, and who will choose who comes back into those new positions?
The mayor appoints, so those recommendations
Or
will...
does the choices?
The recommendations will probably come from the advisory committee through the airport manager and our department director, and then the mayor will have some choices that he can make, and he appoints, and then it comes to you for advice and consent.
And my assumption, I'm not assuming, but I read where they can reapply and be reappointed after 1 year. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you could still have the same rollover.
The discretion in the ordinance allows the mayor to make the recommendation and for the council to advise and consent and approve or reject that recommendation.
And just like any other,
Members of the community or council or local groups can lobby with the mayor for appointment
For
and
appointments.
participation. And then it's the mayor's prerogative to make the appointment subject to the advice and consent of the council.
And if we have concerns at that time, we would not approve the appointments.
Mm-hmm.
But if we wanted some kind of criteria as to who, a certain representative, it would be an ordinance addition, correct?
That would require an action to amend the ordinance beyond what is being proposed at this point.
You know, we expect that the mayor, when he appoints people to any committee, he's going to have a cross-section of the interested parties. And currently, I think we have. This one may have missed this organization, but hopefully that will be corrected in the future. But we don't have it in ordinance. You know, it's we don't know. We can't. I don't know how we would do that.
Well, I believe, like Mr. Williams said, we'd have to look at that.
Yeah, that'd be
legal
difficult to do.
Points that would have to be cleared up.
So could we pass this ordinance and then come with an amendment to it?
Why would you not do it right the first time is my concern. And I mean, it has come back to us, but it came back to us because we didn't have the sunset report that we were expecting the last time it was on the agenda.
you know, and out of full respect for this, for the airport group, I think it's important that we, you know, I mean, I respect the group, but I'm saying we shouldn't just highlight one group and say, we want you to be on the committee. I think what we need to do is what exactly Councilmember Heyer said, is make sure that we put our trust in the mayor to say, do we have an opportunity for the voices to be heard? Do we have posting in the airport saying we're going to be looking at assignments or you know, for this new committee? And give people the opportunity to let the mayor know, here's who we want appointed to this committee and here's why. Not just because they're a part of a group, but here's what their background is and here's their expertise and here's the business and stuff like that.
But in contrast to that, we have lots of committees where we have specific criteria, and I go back again to the Heritage Foundation, but or that it's an architect, and I mean, this is the only association at the airport.
Yeah, they're the only, I think they're the only association at the airport. I mean, they're recognized by the IRS. They file.
So I hear what you're
paperwork.
saying, and I know the mayor's going to do his best, but if we're going to make a recommendation, it would be in the ordinance, because we just say yes or no to appointments. We don't have input on those.
Well, and like the Trails Network, you make sure you have representation from Weaver Pathways and various trail groups.
Right.
You know, with this, you do have one organization that is there to help promote the airport and, you know, represent general aviation interests there.
I think we want to, I'm not comfortable in making the advisory committee larger than 9, though. I think that's probably a max from, it just doesn't work very well, you get too many voices. And so if we made any change, it would require them to choose who's not going to go on, that they've already recommended and appointed, or, you know, asked to be. And I guess that could be done. You know, that's not our problem, that's somebody else's, I guess, but I don't know. I don't feel uncomfortable proceeding with this.
Well, along with that, I believe we chose the 5 because it was more than half.
Right.
Half of 9, and if we make that bigger, I think there would be a ripple effect on other aspects of the ordinance.
My understanding is that, are there anyone on the committee that are individuals that are being suggested to be on the committee? Do they have any GA or experience?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Most of them.
Most of them do.
Okay.
And one was the former president,
Yeah,
as we've
Mr.
just
Young
heard.
was the president of the Ogden Regional Airport Association.
But I think
How
it's
long ago was
important
that?
for us to reach out to
We can
the
ask
group that does not feel like they're being heard. Maybe in the future, we can look at that situation.
I agree. I think the administration has taken note and said that they would address it. I don't know.
That's part of the goal of reestablishing this committee that hasn't been working for the last couple of years. We do recognize there's a lot of change going on out there and want to hear all of those voices. So it is a dynamic environment, and the more information we have, the better decisions we make.
You're ready for motion? Give it a try. Okay. I would propose that, I will move that we adopt ordinance 2013-22, amending section 8-1-4.c of the municipal code.
I second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-22 and a second from Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gochner?
No.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
No.
Vice Chair Gardner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes.
I guess I'd like to explain my no
Yeah.
vote. I think the committee members are great, and this is a dormant committee, and I just think we have the opportunity right now to amend the criteria.
My no vote is for similar reasons, in that, we are starting with a clean slate and we have a chance to get it right, and I think we're kind of missing the boat, and perhaps not having adequate representation from one of the most important user groups at the airport.
And my yes vote basically is because I think this committee's been held in hostage for quite a while here. I still feel I have all the confidence in the world that the mayor and the committee will work together with this group. And if they don't, you all have our phone numbers and you can see them on the website, and we expect a call if it doesn't work. But I just hate to see us let this linger any longer.
I would echo that of Councilmember Van Hoosier. I think this committee has been I don't want to say dysfunctional, but non-existent
Yeah.
for too long, and I think the longer we postpone this, the more it makes it, and I think we have a chance to get this going again, and there's a great vibe out at the airport.
And
Hopefully
I
we can
think
build on it.
if they attend the meetings and voice their concerns, and we get those minutes, and like Councilwoman Van Hoosier mentioned, they can give us a call and we can voice those concerns as city council.
And I really would appreciate, I think Mr. Eccles will do everything he can to be inclusive, and I think that's really important. And if we see it's still an issue, I think the ordinance could certainly be changed.
And I do want to jump in here a little bit. I have listened and met with, friends of the airport, and I think it's important that we do fix some of the communication issues and work on those along with it. I still feel strongly that the makeup of the board needs to be those who have the experience. And I think that's what I heard from the people who came up to the podium, is it needs to be those who are members out on the airport, who fly in and fly out, And we do have to have a good cross-sectional, and I think that's what we need to do going forward, is to have voices heard and make sure that we address those concerns as they're brought up.
Also, I've got to say that I also am a pilot, and have been since '88, and love Ogden Airport, and am very interested to make sure that it remains a viable general aviation airport. And some of the things that are going on down there, though that they are bringing a commercial flavor, I don't think they take away from the general aviation. And I'm kind of protective of that general aviation also. So don't feel like I'm an enemy, because I am absolutely a friend of general aviation. I love it. It provides a lot for our town. There are many people in our town that are interested in the airport from a general aviation standpoint. And I trust that the ordinance that is in place and has been in place with very few modifications this time will continue to offer that advisory role to those who actually make policy and legislation. I think it can do that.
Okay. Next up are the 4 items listed under common consent.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the items under common consent to set the Airport Advisory Committee to approve those appointments, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to approve reappointments, the Ogden Housing Authority to approve appointments and reappointments, and for the salary schedule to set the public hearing for June 18th, 2013.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Garner to adopt the items under common consent and a second from Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next up are public hearings. First up is the tentative fiscal year 2013-2014 budget. Ms. Jenny Neller-Smith.
Chair Blair and council members, I'm just going to make a brief presentation about the tentative budget. Tonight before you is the action to adopt the tentative budget and set the public hearing for the final budget, which will be for June 18th. We are working through our budget process, and there's several things that sort of direct what we do in the budget. When we work through the capital improvement plan, we work through the annual action plan, and all of those sort of direct what happens in the budget proposal that comes from the administration. And just as a member of council staff, I'd like to thank the administration for the efforts that they've made in this particular budget process. It's gone very smooth. We got all of the information that requested in a very timely manner. The capital improvement plan was on time this year, and which really helps us in our review of the budget and our involvement in the budget process. So we just like to thank the administrative staff for that. Our budget schedule, we started with receiving the tentative budget on May 7th. We've had several work sessions, and we'll continue to have a couple of work sessions between May 16th through June 13th. Our first public hearing is tonight, and we're setting the public hearing on the budget, final budget. Well, we also just, on common consent, set the public hearing for the salary schedule, and the final budget and salary schedule public hearing will be June 18th, and which will meet our deadlines set by state law to have a final budget adopted by June 22nd. Just a very brief review. The mayor did a great overview of what's contained in the budget when he proposed the initial tentative budget. But property tax is up and sales tax is up. But there are some other revenues that are down, but the overall increase to the general fund is 2.5%, which is not a lot, but it's certainly in the right direction. For the fee proposals, the budget includes new fees for the tow rotation. These are fees to cover costs for inspection and verification efforts that Ogden Police Department uses to get tow companies on their tow rotation list. And then there's also increases in the building permit fees. We haven't increased the building permit fees for 10 to 15 years, and this just brings it in line with the actual costs that the city uses and also in line with other jurisdictions. With regard to personnel proposal, they're proposing to eliminate 6 positions, adding 10 for the, which it means a net plus of 4 for a total of 580 full-time positions. These changes are primarily due to changes or in reorganizations of some departments, several part-time to full-time positions that are required because of the change in the healthcare requirements. Part-time positions couldn't be eliminated because of their workload, and so they went to full-time. There are 2 positions that are being eliminated, which are currently vacant. The wage benefit proposal for the retirement costs are fully funded by the city. A benefit increase for those employees who have the value HSA the city is covering, and that's that $282,000. There's an increase of 4.17%. That's the others in a different health plans will have to cover, the employees will have to cover. But there's a 2% pay for performance, 1% bonus. There was some reclassification or classifications and due to benchmarking, and then 4 positions were reclassified. With regard to the capital proposal, we've had some discussion about this, and we'll have some additional discussion, but the budget as stands promotes about $7.5 million in capital improvements. There are no amendments proposed for the tentative budget. You'll be adopting the tentative budget as it was proposed by the administration. We will be, as staff, be discussing with you potential amendments to the tentative budgets in the upcoming work sessions. So I don't know if you have any other questions for me. That's just a brief overview of the tentative budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will now allow those that would like to comment on the tentative fiscal year 2013-2014 budget. Time is yours. Any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion from Councilmember Gochner to close the public hearing and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Now, any further discussion?
And if there is no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt this resolution and set the public hearing for June 18th.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2013-14 to set the public hearing for June 18th, 2013 from Councilmember Gochner and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, that passes. Next is the Sullivan Road name change. Mr. Grover.
Chair, members of the council, the Planning Commission reviewed kind of an orphan piece of land to look at the possibility of a name change. The problem we have is the north side of the road has a name of Patterson, and the south side of the road has a name of Sullivan. It's about a 280-foot strip of land, or road, and it dead ends. And the problem we have is it's really creating problems for emergency response vehicles and getting out there to service these people in the case of an emergency. This was created back in, it was right around 1998. And what happened was this section between Monroe and Madison, the Sullivan area, was left out. Typically, this alignment right in through here, which is 3050, is typically known as Patterson. And not Sullivan, and so it's created some confusion. And then when the Sullivan Hollow Park was created, it further isolated the connection of this segment to Sullivan Road, which when many of you think of Sullivan Road, you think of the angled road on Sullivan. And so with this, there are basically 4 areas on the south side which are identified as Sullivan, and then there are 5 areas on the north side which are identified as Patterson. And so the name change would bring it in line with Patterson, which is directly to the west of Madison. So it would have a connection point, and it would make sense to rename it as Patterson.
Any questions? Thank you. This is also a public hearing, so we will now allow for those that would like to comment on this issue.
Nobody coming forward, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks to close the public hearing and a second from Councilmember Van Hoosier. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Any further discussion or a motion?
Make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2013-23, changing the name of Sullivan Road between 700 East and 800 East to Patterson Street.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion from Councilmember Wicks to adopt proposed ordinance 2013-23 and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Van Hoosier?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Next is new business. There is consideration of canceling the following meetings in 2013: July 16th, July 23rd, August 6th, November 5th, December 24th, and December 31st.
Chair Blair, I move that we cancel those following meetings.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Van Hoosier to cancel the above-mentioned meetings and a second from Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address clearly for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. In this form of government, all city personnel are the responsibility of the administration, not of the council. Please discuss any concerns you may have regarding staff with the mayor, chief administrative officer, or department directors.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Hudgens, and I live on the corner of 7th and Liberty, and I'm here to talk about that project from Liberty to Adams on 7th Street. I'm not happy with it. My main concern is I don't have access to my irrigation water. What happened was we have gravity irrigation, we have ditches on top on 7th Street, and you have boxes, and it goes down the pipe, and you shut off the boxes and you irrigate your yards. I had 2 in front. I had one for my front yard, and then I had another one for my backyard. Okay. What happened was that they cemented the one box, so I cannot irrigate it. And the ditch master told them when they inspected it that it had to be open because I'm on the corner and it has a drainage there. And I'm getting nowhere with your director or whoever worked on the project manager. And he came and he dug a hole by my driveway, on the left, and I got this big hole and this little tiny wall, and then there's nothing by the sidewalk. Somebody could fall into that hole. And the whole project has been a disaster from day one. And you set my driveway, and it didn't pass inspection, and it had to have another cement job done on it. Then you replaced my fence, but you didn't dig out my old fence. And so I had to hire somebody to go in and dig out the fence, and that wasn't bad enough. Then you spray it with weeds. And I have had to have somebody go and put rocks there to make it look better, is the bottom line. I want access to my irrigation water. I want a pipe to that box so that the water will flow down my front yard. That's all I ask. How that project ever passed inspection, I will never know. And then you're going to go up on 7th Street. If you don't think that was a mess, wait till you get up on 7th Street. There's an underlined spring there. You got 2 ditches up there. The top property has got gravel up there. The bottom part has got sand. And you guys think you're going to go up there and repair this? You need a good project manager, and not the one that did the bottom half of 7th Street. All I want is my pipe to my irrigation box so I can irrigate.
Janelle, thank you. And we'll have someone get with you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Comments from administration?
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay, council staff?
Just one comment. I'd just like to remind council members and any citizens that might be watching this that filing deadline for city council seats is June 7th at 5 p.m. They need to file with the recorder's office if you're interested in one of the open seats.
Okay. Council members?
I'd like to mention that this weekend we have the Arts Festival, and that starts the summer programs. The farmers market will be beginning, and also we'll go right into July where the festivities, the Pioneer Days, will be happening. And also this past week, a former city council member, Fozzie Filiaga, had his 80th birthday, so I send my best wishes to Fozzie.
All of us do, yeah.
Another issue, one of the other things too, is along with the Arts Festival, the Utah Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum will have a soft opening on Friday evening, and will continue to be open in Union Station where the gift shop used to be. So we look forward to having anybody in the community that's interested in the Western lifestyle and the way of life to come take a look.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn from Councilmember Wicks and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Now we have our RD.
Next, we will have a redevelopment agency special meeting, followed by a municipal building authority meeting.